You know, I've been doing this a long time, and I talk to a lot of people in a lot of circumstances, and tonight we're talking about a story that is just unthinkable. It's a story of unthinkable spousal betrayal. A loving wife and mother, Catherine Herring, says her whole life changed after she told her husband of 11 years, Mason, a successful lawyer, that she was pregnant with their third child. Why? Because that's when Catherine claims her husband began a secret and sinister plot to ensure she never gave birth to that baby, that third child. Now, at the time, Catherine and her husband were separated, but she believed they were actively working to repair their marriage. But in the coming weeks, after her pregnancy announcement, Catherine says she discovered her husband secretly poisoning her drinks on multiple occasions with an abortion-inducing medication that she believes he did in an attempt to end their unborn baby's life. Later, leading to his arrest, a plea deal, guilty, and a sentence Catherine says was no justice at all. Now, in an exclusive interview, Catherine is here to tell her story, and I'm sorry you're having to tell it, but I'm so glad you are sharing this, because this is a cautionary tale. It's an important tale, and it's a cautionary tale. How many times did he attempt to do this in your estimation?
He did it a total of 7 times. The first drink was the only one I consumed, and then the 6 remaining drinks I collected as evidence.
Thank you for sharing this, by the way.
Thank you for having me.
Before the first time, you weren't expecting this at all, correct?
No, I could not have imagined this in my wildest dreams.
You didn't have your antenna out thinking, when I tell him this, he's going to try to do something to me or to the baby. That wasn't on your radar. You knew he wasn't happy.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't happy when you told him, right?
Correct. And his behavior in the weeks leading up to the baby news was very erratic, but I wasn't quite sure what was going on. He had asked for a separation the week before I found out I was pregnant. And just a lot of the things he was saying, they weren't lining up. There was a lot of confusion. Are we working on our marriage? Are we getting a divorce? I wasn't quite sure.
Okay, and how long had you been separated?
Oh, just a week before I found out I was pregnant. Yes.
Okay, so you hadn't been seeing any, you guys hadn't been separated long enough that you were in other relationships or anything?
Oh, no, and we were actively in marriage counseling.
I see.
And he just kept saying, everything's gonna be fine, everything's gonna work out.
So he had no theory that it wasn't his child or anything. He knew that it was his child.
I believe so.
Yeah, and so what was his reaction when you told him that you were pregnant?
I told him while we were in marriage counseling. I felt like just with the erratic behavior, I needed like a witness. I needed a buffer to be there. And he just really shut down. He went silent and he walked to a window and just kind of stared out and was silent.
And then he texted you about it afterwards. What did he say in the text?
He apologized for his negative reaction, and the marriage counselor at the time encouraged us to go on spring break together. And she said, you know, a baby's on the way, you have 2 other kids already. I think it's important for you to get away and have some time with just your family. And so that's what we did. We went to West Texas and, you know, had a good family trip. We sat on the couch, snuggled up together, watching movies. I really felt like we were kind of moving in a positive direction. and felt like he was committed to working on our marriage.
From the time you were in that session and told him that you were pregnant and found yourself snuggled up on the couch in West Texas, how long?
Just a few days.
Just a few days. Now, when you believe he spiked the first drink on that trip?
So it was the day after we returned. It was Thursday, March 17th. I'll never forget it. It was St.
Right.
Patrick's Day. And he came to the house and brought me breakfast in bed.
Okay. Wow. Okay. And so you were on the trip for how long?
Saturday through Wednesday. And then we returned Wednesday night. And then Thursday morning, he brought me breakfast in bed. And my initial gut reaction was, wow, maybe our trip worked.
Yeah, maybe this had an impact. Maybe we're closing the gap here.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got back, and then it was the next morning that he's bringing you breakfast in bed. So is it your belief that when he got back from the trip, he got the substance that day and put it in your drink the next morning?
We're not exactly sure when the pills were obtained, but that's what we believe, is that potentially, we know he had a contact in El Paso who went across the border to get the pills. And so we believe that maybe they were mailed from El Paso to Houston. And then he used them in the drink that Thursday morning.
Okay, wow. So that was St. Patrick's Day, March 17th.
March 17th.
And you said that he brought you breakfast and a full cup of water. And how much of it did you drink?
Almost all of it. He sat on the end of the bed and he encouraged me to drink. He said, when we were on spring break, I noticed that you did not drink enough water. And I think for the health of your pregnancy, you should stay hydrated. And I want you to start each day with a big glass of water. And, you know, the red flags were raised. I felt like he was acting very strange, but he had been acting strange the weeks prior. And I was just trying to, you know, absorb what was happening. And I was hopeful that he really was concerned about my hydration, was concerned about my pregnancy. And so he sat on the end of the bed and watched me drink it. And we talked, and as time went on, he started getting agitated, and he started encouraging me to drink faster. And then he stood up at one point and was hovering over me and said, I need to go. You need to drink faster, chug. And that's when I looked down into the cup for the first time, and the water was not clear.
You know, what you're I wasn't there. I didn't see this, but what you're describing from a psychological standpoint is very sinister, because he's using the pregnancy that he's wanting to destroy as a cover and a motive to get you to, he's saying, look, I really want to protect this pregnancy, so here, drink this substance that will destroy the very thing he's telling you he wants to protect. And that's a higher level of sinister in using the very thing he knows you would guard with all effort and energy. He's using that very motive in you to get you to do the very thing that will, wow, okay. We need to unpack that a little bit, because I think it's going to explain some other things here. You know what they say, if I knew then what I know now. Just last year when I partnered with Preserve Gold, gold wasn't even trading near $3,000 an ounce. Today, some experts are predicting that gold could reach $6,000 an ounce by the end of 2026. You can do the math. That's why I encourage you to get informed. Text Ask Phil at 50505 or visit drphilgold.com and request your free gold buying guide from Preserve Gold. That's free. My ask is this: do your homework, educate yourself, talk to people you trust, and decide whether gold is right for you. It starts with education. Text Ask Phil to 50505 or go to drphilgold.com. Dr. Uma Naidu joins me on Thursday, and we're going to connect dots most people never even knew existed between stress, inflammation, your microbiome, and the anxiety that shows up as insomnia, gut issues, and brain fog. We break it down in plain language, then we get tactical. How to spot your food mood triggers, what inflammation actually means for mental health, and the daily routine shifts that can help your brain feel steady again. A calmer mind might start with your next meal. This Thursday on the Dr. Phil Podcast. You say he actually hovered over you and insisted you chug it. Mm-hmm. And you looked into the cup. What did you see?
The liquid was cloudy, kind of milky. I could see a white, cloudy substance in it.
Okay. But you did drink it.
I did. There was about an inch left. And I immediately asked, what is this? You know?
Yeah. And what did he say?
He grabbed the cup out of my hands and he looked down in it and he said, "Oh, weird, I must have grabbed a dirty cup." And he took the cup and left the room.
So did he take it with him?
He did.
He took the evidence. Mm-hmm. Did you think that was odd?
I did.
So he insists that you drink this, mm-hmm. then takes it from you and leaves. Mm-hmm. So you have no evidence. Mm-mm. Only what you've ingested. Mm-hmm. What happened next?
I kind of got back under my covers and tried to absorb what had just happened. It was very early in the morning. It was still spring break. The kids were asleep. And, I think one of the things that's dangerous about domestic violence in particular is your head and your heart are playing against each other. And so my heart was very hopeful that he was there to help me, that he was there out of love. And then my head really felt like something was wrong. There was something off about the entire interaction. There was clearly something off with the drink that he gave me. And I'm just kind of taking it all in. And then all of a sudden, my stomach started cramping severely. And this is hard to talk about, but I urgently needed to go to the bathroom. And I did not make it from my bed to the bathroom that was adjoined to our room. And I ended up having diarrhea in my pants before I could make it to the bathroom.
That quick?
That quick.
And how long had it been since he left?
About 30 minutes.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. So this had to be a powerful mm-hmm. substance that he gave you. Mm-hmm. And do you know what it is now?
So at that point, I did not.
Okay.
Now we know it was abortion pills.
Right.
But at that point, I was, I really was in denial. I thought, maybe I have food poisoning. I kind of retraced my steps. Okay, what did I have for dinner last night? I got in the shower in my clothes. I just, rinsed off and changed into fresh pajamas and got back into the bed. And it happened a second time. And once that second time happened, I thought, this is not food poisoning.
Yeah. Did it break through in your mind that you had been given something at that point? Did you admit it into consciousness at that point?
I was very suspicious, but I had no idea what it could possibly be. You know, every scenario under the sun, you know, was a possibility. Was it a laxative? Was it, you know, it could be a million different things.
And when did you hear from him next?
So he continued to text me throughout the morning, asking, how are you? And what are you doing? Things like that. And I really tried to avoid talking to him as I was, you know, wrapping my head around what was going on.
So do you think he was checking back to see if you were going to tell him something's wrong?
I think, yeah, to see if it worked.
Yeah.
Is my guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And at some point, it got bad enough that you went to the ER?
I did. So before that, very serendipitously, I remembered an article that I had seen in passing, and it was talking about abortion pill reversals. And that morning I thought, okay, is he trying to hurt me or is he trying to hurt the baby? And I thought, if he's trying to hurt the baby, is there anything I can do to counteract what I was given? And so I ended up Googling abortion pill reversals, and a pregnancy hotline number came up. And I called the number and I said, this is going to be the craziest thing you've ever heard, but this is what just happened to me. And they immediately just snapped into action, and they said, if it was something to harm the baby, we need to get you a dosage of progesterone. So progesterone counteracts an abortion pill. Abortion pills cut your hormone production, and abortion pill reversals, progesterone, reintroduces the hormone back in. And so they worked urgently trying to get me a prescription. And I remembered on that phone call that I had been prescribed progesterone in a previous pregnancy. And so I started searching my medicine cabinet, and I ended up finding my old prescription.
Oh, you did?
And I was able to take the necessary dosage within an hour of being poisoned.
And how critical, and as I say, this is very educational for women that can be subjected to this. Mm-hmm. How critical was timing?
I think crucial, absolutely. I truly think that was a miracle that Josephine is alive today because of the progesterone that was taken so quickly, and then the medical attention that I received quickly after. So the pregnancy hotline ended up recommending, after a few hours of bleeding and cramping and diarrhea, they said, you've got to go to an emergency room. And so that's when I ended up in the ER. Okay,
so you were able to get the progesterone within the hour. Mm-hmm. And what is the window that is recommended to get the progesterone? Obviously, sooner the better?
Yeah, the sooner the better.
All right, and how long a window do you have before it doesn't help?
That's a great question. I'm not sure the answer.
Okay, well, we'll find that out.
Yes.
We'll find that out while we're talking here, and include that in our discussion. Mm-hmm. But you got it within an hour, and how soon before you got to an ER, and what did they do when you got there?
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to remember the exact timing of going to the ER. It had to have been early afternoon, maybe 1 o'clock.
Okay, so within a few hours you were there. What did they do when you got there?
They asked for a urine sample at check-in. And so when I came out of the bathroom with my urine sample, it was black in color. Okay. And I handed it to the nurse, and the nurse said, "What is this?" And I said, "Well, that's my urine sample." And they immediately, rushed into action, grabbed a doctor out of surgery, and everyone was extremely concerned that I was going into kidney failure.
Well, so you took critical action at a critical time. Mm-hmm. All right, so we're going to we're going to unravel this, and the story is really miraculous. It's unbelievable. So we'll continue to talk about this. You know, we all know this, but it really needs saying. Medicare is confusing. You can spend hours researching and still end up more lost than when you started. The wrong move can cost you thousands, but you can't trust most agents to guide you. They're most focused on commissions, not what's right for you. That's why I like Chapter. Chapter is the only Medicare advisor that compares every plan nationwide. All of them. By doing it the right way, they've helped people save an average of $1,100 a year on healthcare costs. Now, that's real money back in your pocket. When it comes to your healthcare, this is not a place to hope you picked right. Talk to Chapter for complete Medicare guidance. The call is free, and they can review your options in under 20 minutes. Just click the link to get started. You fully believe you were given an abortion pill. You didn't want it. You didn't know you were taking it. And the pregnancy hotline, thank God, told you need to get progesterone to reverse that. We've confirmed while we've been talking that the sooner the better, but there's a 24 to 72 hour window after which there's not much hope of it helping, and the sooner the better, and so you really sprung into action. When you got to the ER and you gave them a black urine sample, they started giving you kidney support, and what else did they do?
They started an IV, I believe, and an antibiotic, and I continued taking that for the next few days.
Did you stay in the hospital?
I was there, I believe, a total of 8 hours, but then ended up going home.
And did your husband visit you while you were there?
He did not.
Did you tell him you were there?
I did.
And did you give him any idea that you were suspect of what had happened?
No.
What was your decision-making process during that time?
Again, my head and my heart were playing against each other. I desperately wanted to be wrong, but I knew that whatever was in that drink made me sick, and so.
You had crossed that threshold.
I crossed that threshold.
So you weren't in so much denial that did you believe he put it in there, or did you just think somehow or another you got something bad, or had you crossed the threshold, he gave me something?
I knew he gave me something. I didn't know what it was.
Did you think it was pertinent to the pregnancy, or that you think it was trying to hurt you or the baby?
I wasn't sure at that point. And I really started, trying to collect evidence. I went back, I looked in the trash cans. Was there anything there? Could I find the cup? And I couldn't find anything the first round. And shockingly, the very next day, he did it again. Okay,
now let's go through this. So you're at the emergency room for 8 hours. You've been deathly ill. You're putting out black urine. You can't make it even 20 feet to the bathroom. But you get to the ER. They've treated you. Did you see your OBGYN? Did they tell you that you were still intact with everything?
That's a great question. I didn't see my OBGYN at the time, but in the emergency room, they conducted a sonogram, and I was able to see a strong heartbeat, and they thought that everything looked good.
Okay. Did they believe that you had been given an abortion pill?
Is
there any way to tell?
So interestingly, the emergency room does not test for prescription drugs. So they did testing for recreational drugs,
Yeah.
but we couldn't gather any additional evidence at the emergency room. The social worker came in and interviewed me. They were very concerned. There was a discussion of whether to call the police. And ultimately, I decided that I didn't have enough evidence to talk to the police at that point.
Okay. Did you see Mason the next day?
The next day.
Okay. He came back over and you hadn't confronted him with any, had you told him you'd been to the emergency room?
Yes.
And why did he say he thought you had gone? What did you guys discuss about that?
I had had some pregnancy losses prior to that, and he discussed that it was probably similar to before, that I've had so many issues with my pregnancy. It was probably that.
Yeah. Well, he's played it straight. Did he offer you a drink?
He did.
He did.
Yeah.
What did you think when he did that?
Yeah. I definitely knew I was not drinking that drink.
Did you look in the cup?
I did.
What did he offer you?
So the second round, he made a cranberry drink in an orange sports bottle and left it in the mailbox. I was supposed to be out of town that weekend, and I had already arranged childcare and everything for me to be gone. And so I decided, okay, I'm just gonna go stay at a hotel, kind of wrap my head around all of this, get some extra sleep and some rest. And my mom came in town. I didn't tell her why I had been to the emergency room, but she knew I had been. And so I had forgotten my antibiotic from the emergency room. And so I texted my ex and said, I'm gonna swing by the house. And he said, no, 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 do not come inside. I'll leave the medicine in the mailbox. Would you like a cranberry drink also? And I thought, okay, I'm gonna say yes and see what happens. And so I picked up my medicine and the cranberry drink. I took it back to the hotel and I just set it on the nightstand. And I thought, when I wake up in the morning, I'm gonna look and see what it looks like the next day.
It's going to be very interesting to hear what Catherine saw in this drink. And I really want to know what went through your mind when you looked inside. That's my next question. I'm Dr. Phil, and I am a big believer in family movie night. But let's be honest, how many times have you clicked through the channels and thought, there is no way in the world I would let my family watch that? That's why I am so excited to partner with You Can Do It Foundation. Their mission is simple: restoring hope and values-based storytelling. Stories that strengthen character, uplift the human spirit, and are embedded in truth. And if you can do it sounds familiar? That's because it's the famous phrase of my friend Rob Snyder, who founded the You Can Do It Foundation. I am all ears about how you're going to change this media landscape, because it needs changing.
Well, it does. You have to start somewhere. And I think you have to have, why not shoot for the moon?
Visit ycdif.com. What our families watch matters, and hope is something worth sharing. It's the next day. You've seen him, right? You're actually in his presence. Did it feel threatening?
Well, remember, I was at the hotel.
Right.
So I was not with him, thankfully.
Okay. So you didn't see him. You talked to him, but you didn't see him.
So I saw him, actually, that's a really great question. I'm not sure, because I picked it up from the mailbox. Yeah, I may have seen him briefly switching kids and getting ready for the hotel.
But he thought you were going out of town. Mm-hmm. Okay, but you were just going to a hotel there in Houston. Mm-hmm. And you picked up the bottle. Mm-hmm. And had he ever fixed you drinks and stuff before? And
no.
This is totally out of character.
Totally out of character.
In 2020 hindsight, this looks like so obvious.
Yeah.
Okay, and he fixes you this cranberry drink. You don't look in it right away. Why? You said you waited till the next morning.
I may have looked in it, but it wasn't milky like the water was, right? And,
Yeah.
you know, obviously I'd never gone through anything like this before. I didn't really know what to expect or what I was even looking for.
Yeah, because it doesn't flash.
No, I mean,
poison.
no. Like,
so when you looked in it the next morning, what did you see?
so the next morning when I woke up at the hotel and opened the lid to the sports bottle, there were clumps of powder in the top floating in the cranberry juice.
Wow. Take me through that moment. When you open the top of that and see clumps of a powder floating in top, what did you say to yourself in that moment?
I think he's poisoning me.
No more denial.
No more. It was shockingly obvious that something was going into these drinks. I still felt like I couldn't tell my mom, who was in the bed next to me at the hotel, but a friend of mine who had watched the kids while I was in the emergency room, she knew what was going on. And I texted her that morning and I sent her a picture. And I said, he's poisoning me, isn't he? And she said, yes.
Yeah. So all denial's off at this point. Mm-hmm. And you, of course, saved that. Mm-hmm. And you had it analyzed?
Yes, so I saved that, and on Monday morning, he made a third drink. And that one was back in my bed, breakfast in bed, same routine. It was a cup with orange juice this time. And I had hired a private investigator when my ex-husband had asked for a separation. I wasn't sure what I was facing, what I was dealing with, and I needed more information. And so I went to my private investigator on Monday morning, and I had two of the drinks. I had the cranberry sports drink and then the orange juice drink.
And how did you get by without drinking the orange drink with him standing there?
So interestingly, he never stayed to watch me drink another drink. He would just hand it off and leave.
Okay. Did he check back with you? Mm-hmm. What did he do? What did he say?
Yeah. Like more questions about how are you than I had received in years, you know?
Yeah. Check to see if you're hydrated.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so you now have two drinks. Mm-hmm. And did the second one have clumps or whatever?
Yeah, enough powder I could take a spoon and scoop it out, and I put it in a Ziploc bag. And my private investigator and I started, talking about getting a plan. How do we test this? What labs could take this on? It's very difficult to test drinks.
Yeah, it's not as easy as you think.
No.
It seems so obvious what's going on now with 2020 hindsight, but at the time you're in the middle of this, you've ingested one, you've collected two now. Both of them have clumps of a powdery substance in them. Fortunately, you haven't ingested any of the number two or number three. You've got a private investigator involved. At what point did you start surveillance?
Yeah. So the day after I met with the private investigator, he did it again. So there was a drink on that Monday and Tuesday. So I went back to the private investigator's office, and now we had 3 drinks.
What was the third one in?
It was another orange juice.
Okay, so you got a cranberry and 2 orange juice, and it too had something in it.
Very clearly. And it was a prepackaged orange juice, and the seal had been broken. And I found that so odd. The outer seal had been broken, and then when I opened the lid, the inner seal was gone. It was so clearly it had been tampered with. So thankfully, the drinks paused for a little while. I think possibly he was trying to see if they had worked. And so during that time, we frantically were trying to test the liquids, and then I installed cameras outside my house.
Okay, so you ingested 1, you've now collected 3. You got a cranberry and 2 orange juice. So that's 4 that you have, and you put cameras inside and outside the house, right?
At that time, there were only outside cameras.
Okay.
But I started, really focusing on my safety, trying not to be alone with him, keeping my doors locked and my alarm set. The difficult part of that was he still had the keys to the house and the alarm code. And it was a very difficult task of keeping myself safe, but also not tipping him off that we were on to him. Because at that point, we still didn't have confirmation about what was in the drinks.
Okay. And when you put the cameras up, you were hoping to see what? What were you, what did you think you might catch on the cameras?
Just erratic behavior, or if, it's really wild. Your head is spinning. You're just thinking, okay, what's the plan B here? Like, if this doesn't work, I could be in great danger right now.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because you're not reporting to him, hey, I've had a miscarriage or whatever. If he could panic, because he really didn't want this to happen. At one point, he told you this was going to really mess things up for him. Was he in another relationship? Did you know that at the time?
I had suspicions for years. And for years, I was told that I was absolutely crazy. There was nothing going on, and it was a work relationship. So there were lots of dismissals that it was just work. And that was part of hiring the private investigator too, initially, was to find out what was really going on. If we are headed for divorce, what am I working with here? What am I looking at? And my attention really just turned to my safety. Thankfully, he went on a big trip to Las Vegas after the 4th poisoning, and he was out of town. And then Easter arrived, and so I was out of town, and we kind of danced around each other for a couple of weeks. And so I wasn't really interacting in person with him. And then he gave me a heads up. Hey, in a couple of days, I'm going to come and bring you breakfast. Okay. And I called my private investigator and I said, okay, I think we're gearing up again.
All right. And so, but now you have cameras in place. What did you see?
Yeah, so we started getting a plan to get some interior cameras.
Well, that's when you put in the inside cameras.
The inside, yes. The 5th drink, I was starting to get really scared at that point about being alone with him. And
I would think so.
Yeah, it was a very scary time. And I invited 2 friends to come over and just be a buffer. And so we pretended we were having a meeting at 6:30 in the morning at my house. And he was surprised when he walked in and there were 2 girls there with me. But he continued with his plan, and he gave me the 5th drink in front of them.
And you saved it, of course, and was it spiked as well?
Yes.
All right. So that was number 5.
That's number 5.
All right. Then was it number 6 or number 7 that you actually caught him on camera putting something in the drink?
So it was number 7, and he stood underneath the air vent where the hidden camera had been installed. And he pulled a Ziploc bag out of his pocket and poured a powdery substance from the Ziploc bag into a cup, and then added some cranberry juice and some water into it. And then he brought it and left it at my bedside table.
So you actually had him on camera putting it in the cup and mixing it up, bringing it in.
Yeah.
You also found something in the trash. What'd you find?
So I can't remember the exact date of it, but it was in between the 2 different segments of pills, of poisonings. I had gone out of town, and when I got back into town, I noticed that he had put the big trash cans on the curb at the street. First of all, that was a very rare occurrence.
Right.
He was not a husband that would take the trash out regularly. And then also I found it very strange because he was not living at our house. So to do a chore when you're not living there felt very strange also. And so I asked a friend to come and look into the trash cans with me. And sure enough, we found a bag with empty abortion pill packets.
So have you had any thought that this wasn't, any thought at all? It's you're seeing him mix it through the camera, you're finding this in, you know that the man that you've married is actually trying to kill your baby.
Yeah.
So where does this all lead? I can't imagine what emotional roller coaster you've been on as you're going through all of this, because this is your husband. This is the father of your children. I mean, this is unbelievable. As we're unpacking all of this, I've wanted to hear the details about this, but it all comes to a head, and I've wanted to not hurry through this. So, if we can, I want to say goodbye to everyone, and we're going to pick this up at another time, which will be tomorrow. So I'm going to say goodbye, and I know this is unbelievable to sit through and listen to, but ultimately, obviously, Catherine does have to confront her husband, and accountability comes into play, and you're going to find out the rest of the story when we pick this conversation up tomorrow. Thank you for being here tonight. If you like what you hear, watch me every day on my new network, Envoy TV. Check out the links in the description for more ways to enjoy Envoy TV.